your question is, why were there embargoes against Rhodesia even if they did not have an apartheid government? The thing was, the outside world, being largely the United States and Britain, wanted a specific settlement with the two fighting factions who were fighting for majority rule. But Ian Smith was not inclined because those two factions were in fact supported by Russia and China. So now we will just be handing over Rhodesia to be a satellite state of China and Russia. Anyhow, another problem took place in 1974-75 with the Carnation Revolution in Portugal. And that brought about an end to Portuguese rule in Mozambique when Frelimo took over. That was a disaster for Rhodesia because that added another 1,300 kilometers or 800 miles of border which had to be defended by the Rhodesians. And they simply did not have the manpower to do so. In 1975, 1976, it became clear that an indefinite postponement of Rhodesian majority rule, which let me rephrase that. In 1975-76, it became clear that because of the fact that Rhodesia did not have the manpower, UDI, United Declaration of Independence, was no longer viable. Even overt South African support for Rhodesia was waning. John Foster, whom we as troops had no respect for. We saw his deeds as being traitorous, especially him, Britain, and America by name of Henry Kissinger. South Africa began scaling back economic assistance to Rhodesia, placed limits on the amounts of fuel and munitions being supplied to the Rhodesian military, withdrew the personnel and equipment they had previously provided to aid the war effort, including a border police unit that had been helping guard the Rhodesia-Zambia border. Rhodesians considered these actions nothing less than a betrayal by friends. In 1976, one of the repercussions was that military service for Rhodesian youngsters was extended from 1 year to 18 months. You might be just about to be at the end of your service only to find that another 6 months has been added to your time of service. That took effect immediately. In addition, Rhodesia recruited black men to volunteer for military service. Half of the Rhodesian army was composed of black soldiers. Naturally, Rhodesia also recruited foreign volunteers for service. Late in 1976, Ian Smith accepted the basic elements of the compromise proposals made by US Secretary of State Henry Kissinger to introduce majority rule within 2 years. The government then sought to negotiate an acceptable settlement with moderate black leaders while retaining strong white influence in key areas. So politically, the Rhodesians were pinning all their hopes on the internal political settlement that had been negotiated with moderate black nationalist leaders in 1978, and its ability to achieve external recognition and support. This internal settlement led to the creation of Zimbabwe Rhodesia under a new constitution in 1979. Of course, Nkomo and Mugabe denounced the new government as a puppet of white Rhodesians, and fighting continued. Neither the Thatcher government nor the Carter administration recognized the internal settlement. Later, in 1979, you will recall that I discussed this with you. The Thatcher government called a peace conference in London, to which all national leaders were invited. The outcome of the conference would become known as the Lancaster House Agreement. Mugabe and Nkomo agreed to end the war in exchange for new elections in which they could participate. The economic sanctions imposed on Rhodesia were lifted in 1979, and the country reverted to temporary British rule until elections could be held. The Zimbabwe Rhodesian Parliament voted itself out of Parliament. Excuse me, the Zimbabwe Rhodesian Parliament voted itself out of power, and Lord Soames was appointed by the British government to rule the country as governor designate. On 21 December 1979, a ceasefire was announced and an election was scheduled for early 1980. The war would thus end in a military stalemate. Even the black nationalist leader Robert Mugabe himself stated in an interview published in the New York Times that, and I'm quoting, "We did not win a military victory. We reached a political settlement, a compromise." Of course, during the election of 1980, there were numerous accusations of voter intimidation by Mugabe's guerrilla forces. And many of them, of Mugabe's forces, were accused of not having assembled in the designated guerrilla assembly points as required under the Lancaster House Agreement, and the international observers, as well as Lord Soames, were accused of looking the other way. Okay, the election of early 1980 was won by Mugabe, who became the prime minister after ZANU-PF received 63% of the vote. On 18 April 1980, the British rule ended and the country was internationally recognized as independent, and the colony of Southern Rhodesia was formally renamed Zimbabwe. There was still factional fighting going on, the worst being the worst being between 1982 and 1985. The military crushed armed resistance from Ndebele groups in Matabeleland and the Midlands in a military crackdown known as Gukurahundi, a Shona term which translates roughly to mean the early rain which washes away the chaff before the spring rains. The Gukurahundi campaigns were also known as the Matabele massacres. In this regard, the Zimbabwean military received the assistance of North Korean 5th Brigade, which was deployed to Matabeleland to crush resistance. Approximately 20,000 Matabele were murdered in these. Approximately 20,000 Matabele were murdered in these first years after the war. The most of those killed were victims of public executions. Violence between Zanla and Zipra continued until 1987. In December 1987, the two groups reached an accord which saw them merge into one party known as ZANU-PF, headed by Mugabe, who then became president and gained additional powers as the office of the prime minister was also abolished. I clearly remember the day back in 1976 when it was announced that Ian Smith, the Prime Minister of Rhodesia, had submitted to the principle of majority rule. I wept. That day was the first time my wife Tia saw me crying. We got married on April 17, 1976. I did not weep because Ian Smith had accepted the idea of majority rule. No, that was always a principle that I understood as being fair and inevitable. But my heart was broken that Rhodesia was forced and betrayed to accept eventually being ruled by Russian and Chinese puppets. Britain got what it wanted. America got what it wanted. Rhodesia, once the breadbasket of Africa, was no more. Mugabe's leadership, if one can call it that, turned out to be the most successful African countries onto the second poorest after Mozambique in the world. If only Rhodesians were left to work out a political solution themselves. It did not take long for the economy to collapse. Of course, the monetary system was the first to collapse. And so ends my story and my small part in the country that once was Rhodesia. A small part of the bigger picture, but it will always fill a very large part of my heart. It is a story and a country for which I gladly sacrificed the larger part of my youth. I am now going to state something for which I will probably be crucified for down the line. You lose a war when you start believing your own propaganda. We did not win the war. We did not lose the war either. However, the outcome was clear a long time coming. We were outnumbered right from the start. It was only a matter of time for us to succumb. We simply could not last indefinitely. As I said, we could not win the war either. But we damned well could have worked out a political solution by ourselves without the treachery of Britain, America, and South Africa. From a military point, we put up a good fight, a damn good fight. We were only boys, barely out of high school, but we fought like lions. The best soldiers the world had at the time for the type of fight we fought. Many of us experienced horrors that no person ever needs to see. I don't think one can get over the sorrow or the scar of seeing your best friend being shot in the head or dying in your arms. Ian Smith led the country as Prime Minister from 1964 to 1979. He was a loved and respected leader, and amongst troops, affectionately known as the boss. Not just loved and respected amongst whites, but also amongst blacks, excluding, of course, the factions who fought against the government. History will remember us kindly. Never before has there been, nor will there ever again be, such a proud nation with such a short history. Only 90 years. We have achieved so much in such a short space of time. I would like to quote Clem Tholey, who immortalized the words in song. What a time! What a time it was! I considered myself a Rhodesian, albeit not by birth, but rather because of blood, sweat, and tears. It was the best years of our youth. All gave something. Some gave everything. Till we meet again, I salute you, every one of you. I don't know. There's a section here that describes how the Rhodesian forces operated. Do you want me to go into that?